Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back with our friend and, of course, our executive coach, better known here as well, coaching with Relevance, for Relevance. He's the founder of the company. Also, I must point out, he's a Marshall Gold Smith certified executive coach, not just any coach. And, of course, he's working with people and clients all over the world with his company. Again, coachingforrelevance.com is the website. And we're happy to have him back here again. Good to see you. How's everything?
Good. Been a good holiday so far, and hope everybody's looking forward to a good New Year.
Absolutely, I am. Thank you. So you had a good time. Holidays were good for you and your family?
Yep, it was a little bit uneventful, but I got to spend some time with those great grandkids, and that's always well worth everything. So
Amazing. I can't believe this man. If those of you are not live on the Zoomcast or the podcast, he does not look old enough to have grandkids, let alone great grandkids. So you threw me for a shocker. It's been a while. I know we spoke recently, but we used to speak months ago. So there's a lot to you, what you offer. How would you like to start off the show to get our audience to know you, if you don't mind?
Well, I'll just mention one thing very quickly, and then I'll let you kind of go for it. By the way, it's always a pleasure to work with you, Jill. And as you said, yeah, we worked together before on the shows and everything. So, but yeah, Randy Swaim, my background has been in pilots, in aviation, and of course, all of that sort of led me to the aspect of leadership and coaching and all of that. And but one of the things that I just kind of tell people is my whole vision and my whole purpose for being is to bring freedom to potential and all those across my path. And that's the phrase that I focus on. And if you put it in a pilot language, what I tell people is it's helping people overcome the gravitational forces that are holding them back so that they can soar to their altitude. And that's kind of what I'm all about. So that's what I do, work in a lot of different areas and stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm all about. By the way, I don't do sales calls. So if somebody wants to just connect and have a conversation, you don't have to worry about me. I mean, if you got a need and you're interested in me, yeah, we'll come up with something. But that's my passion. That's what I'm all about, whether it's on the show here, whether it's in the documentary of my life journey that's about to be published the first part of the year and everything. And I'm actually working on completing my autobiography to get published as well. So all of that is just leaving a little bit of an impact that's positive for other people. And that's what I'm all about.
And that's what you're all about, positivity, helping people. I mean, you offer online coaching courses, you offer, there's so much to you. And that's why it's always confusing when I meet with you. I say, this man does so much to help people grow personally, business-wise. And, you mentioned obviously pilots. And I remember your story years ago when you told me your original story when we first met about your being up in the air and working with pilots and how your love and fascination with aviation came through. But, you're here to inspire others to live that better life. And I know some people don't believe in New Year's resolutions, but it is a new year and it's a good place to start. If you haven't started something now is the time because it's a good little bookmark and chapter. And right? I mean, to live that potential, to give you that freedom in whatever it is that you want. It is a good time, I think.
And I like what you just said too, very aligned with that. Somebody said, and I don't remember who the quote came from, but it's totally right. It's like, if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably reach it every time. And it's like, if you don't know where you're going, how do you even know you were successful? So kind of like you're saying, you got to be proactive on it for sure.
Great. And by the way, so you mentioned autobiography is on the way, hopefully this year, but what's coming out in the new year? Which book is this?
Oh, there's two things that PBNN actually had their sponsors kind of had some Hollywood recording team come from Hollywood, and they've actually recorded. They're going through some final editing on it right now. But they've actually recorded a 78-minute, as I understand it, a television documentary of my life and journey and leadership and what got me to coaching and all of that. And apparently, from what I understand, that's going to be, once it's finalized and all that, it's going to be published on platforms, TV platforms all over.
Yay! Oh my goodness! See, I'm out of the loop here. I know some of my clients that I've worked with, they've done this. Wow, this is awesome! Congratulations! I can't wait to see the edited footage.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. And
so the crew came to you. By the way, where are you based out of? You're in Texas, right?
It's in Texas. It's basically the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Uh-huh.
And it was great. It was fantastic getting to know the recording crew and the director and all that kind of stuff. Just 3 days of just amazing interaction and just personal introduction and getting to know people, and it was really pretty cool. So that, and then I'm in the process of working on finalizing the first draft of my autobiography, which once that's all published, probably the first sometime, hopefully within the first half of next year. There's apparently some people that really want to publish it, and apparently, like I said, there's people that I've done one-on-one interacting with that have said that, Randy, you got a story that needs to be told. And so it's like, there you go, kind of thing. So yeah, we'll see. That
Awesome.
next year could be kind of interesting. We'll see.
Beautiful. Congratulations. Much success to you. And clearly, you're very well accomplished. You've been helping so many for so many years with your training and your courses, and just to empower people, which I think is important. For today's show, again, I know you were with another host last week. What did you have in mind for our listeners today? What did you kind of really want to dive into for us?
Well, what we'll do is, and I'll just kind of share this with you and go into it. But remember on the last show, the questions that Ross was talking about was, in today's business environment that's unpredictable sometimes, it's not something that's just universally, academic, kind of thing. And there's a lot going on that you can't totally predict. And we were sort of talking about that. But what I thought I would do is kind of share one point, and I'll leave the listeners with one question for them to consider with themselves and their team as they go forward. When you're talking about leading your team in such an environment. And one of the things that I will tell you is that when you talk about leading in those kind of environments, there's a certain aspect of ethics that comes into play. That, are you making the right decision ethically for that situation? And sometimes people aren't sure of that. And I'll give just two real quick examples. But one is when I was in our Air Force ROTC in college, going through, one of the things that they do when they know you're looking to become either a pilot or some kind of a flight person, navigator or whatever, kind of thing, they interview you to find out kind of where you are. When we were being interviewed, one of the questions that I got, it was a fairly quick question, but it was a fairly quick question. And the folks said, well, listen, Randy, let's say that you're in fighters and you're involved, you're on a mission some point in the future. And he said, you take your fighter off, where the target area is, and you go up and you roll in on the target, and right below the bomb reticle, you see a big red cross. Mm-hmm. Are you going to drop the bomb? Wow. And most people would either try to say yes or no to get the right. And in fact, most of the people would say yes, because that's
my order.
Yeah. Well, what I told him was, I looked at the board and I said, well, let me ask you this. He said, what? And I said, how confident am I in the intelligence that I got? And he looked at me, he said, okay, you're confident. And I said, then I dropped the bomb, because I said, I do come from a military family.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes the enemy will put red crosses or some kind of indications to cover their weapons to make it look like somebody doesn't want to attack it, kind of thing. And I said, that may be the case here. So if I'm comfortable in the intelligence that I got on this target and the location and all that, then I go ahead and drop the bomb. And it's, but it was a different question than most people think about in today's world, because most people think about, well, yes or no, which one does he want me to answer, kind of thing. And when you're talking about leading your team, and I'll leave a question before we sign off today on this, Jill, but I'll leave a question for the listeners. But if you think about it, are you dealing with your team in a way where it really brings that out? Because you know what? The ethics of it may say, do this. And it may be that it doesn't say do that, or it doesn't rate as the most important thing. And I'll just share, a lot of times people can get so overthinking that they fall back into, just a neuroscience aspect, they just fall back into their habit pattern. And one of my good friends in aviation, and I just thought I'd share this as an analogous picture, but unfortunately it was a bad situation, and one of my good friends in aviation died in this crash. And he was a person that owned a flight school down just south of Dallas here, and I was an instructor. He got to know me very well. One day he was ex-Navy, and he knew that I was ex-Air Force, and what was one day they had a big reunion of all of his Navy friends and all this kind of stuff. So he called me up and asked if I would come down and take care of the flight school for the weekend while he was gone. I said, you know what, I'll do that. So I went down and I kind of managed the flight school and scheduling and coordinating and all that sort of stuff. And it was kind of funny. The humorous point about it is on Sunday, late Sunday afternoon, I heard his airplane number coming back in, that he was flying back from the reunion. And I said, oh, cool, he's back. So he came, he landed, shut down and all this. And I go walking out there and I said, hey, man, how'd the reunion go? And he turned and looked at me and he smiled. He said, it was great, but boy, those guys got old. Kind of, and of course he was kind of joking about it, and everything, but good guy. But there was one day where I had the TV on, and I saw the picture of the entry of his flight school on the news. And I ran over and I turned the volume up, and it turned out that he had just died that weekend. And what happened was he was out on a flight and he was kind of in the right seat. And there were two passengers that were sitting in the two seats right behind him. And then there was another guy that he knew who was actually flying the airplane. It was a twin engine airplane.
Oh my goodness.
And all this. And they had an engine failure, and they were going into an airport that was short of where they were supposed to go, just to, minimize risk and all that. Good decision. But as they were coming in, the guy was starting to get slow, and he went below a speed where the airplane was maneuverable. And my friend, whose name is Charlie, he's the power back. And in that case, ethically, even if you land long on the runway and you go off the end of the runway, that's safer than the alternative. Well, the other guy at one point, apparently because he was scared or didn't look like they were going to get on the runway, he pushed the throttles up all the way, and the airplane immediately went out of control. And because you just couldn't control it anymore. And it went into a big roll like this, and the airplane actually crashed. And the two guys in front, including my friend, both died in it. The two passengers actually survived, and they were telling the story, and that's how I learned about it. They were witnesses to what happened and everything. But the bottom line is, as you're interacting with your team, in what way are you not really inspiring them to get what they need to know? When you think about your questions that you're asking your team, are your questions bringing out rote academic answers that make people just go, well, here, just do this. This is the way it's supposed to be. Or does it bring out real good processing where they understand the actual situation, the factors, and the symptoms in it, and they know what to do for success? And it is very interesting, because that's a lot more sort of vague and gray and all of that. And yet leaders, when you're talking about leading your teams in this kind of an environment, you have to understand how to truly connect with your people on that. And one of the things that I would simply say is, and I'll kind of let you have a few comments if you want to, Jill, there too, but I will leave this question for the listeners as you look at your teams and how you interact with them. To what extent are the questions that you ask them just trying to get rote academic answers out of them? Are they just trying to give you the answer that they think you want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you truly
genuinely
are you truly connecting in with who they are, what they see, what they experience, what they think, and you can connect with that. And sometimes you may need to move it in a little bit different direction. That's true. But to what extent are you doing that? And it's interesting because when you're interviewing people that are going to come to work for you, same question. When you think about the questions you're going to ask them, are you asking those questions in a way where they're just going to respond with what they think you want to hear, as opposed to asking the questions in a way where it truly pulls out what they really think? And that's something that leaders have to understand, that difference. And they have to kind of get a sense of how they're doing that and how they need to improve that, particularly when you're talking about leading teams in an unpredictable, challenging world. And it's just something to think about. And I don't think you were on when I shared this before, but I think it was with KC one time. But I was, and I'll just share one more picture of this. But there was the Learjet crash up in Teterboro, New York, which was about 3 years ago, kind of thing. The captain on that, I had him on his last check ride before he went, just recurrent check ride before that. So I'm one of the ones that the NTSB wanted to talk to and interview. And so to make a long story short, the chief pilot said that when she saw my name on the list, she knew that the company was fine. And I went, well, thank you, appreciate it, kind of thing. And you could have anybody in there with you, but I chose the attorney just because, in case the questions went down a weird way, he could kind of go, oh, be careful, or whatever, kind of thing. But he didn't have to say anything in the 2 hours of interview. And to make a long story short, at the very end, it was a very good interactive time for 2 hours with that board. And at the very end, the last question that was asked, there was one guy right across from me who had psychological expertise. And he said, yeah, Randy, I got one more question. I said, what's that? And he said, do you think that what you experienced in training could have prevented this accident?
Wow.
And I looked at him, and the first thing that I did is I put my hand toward him like this. And I said, I want you to understand, you have my compliments for asking that. I said, I'm proud of you for asking that, because I said, it's a critical question. But then I said this very quickly. I said, the vast majority of people all over this industry would answer it yes. And I'm here to tell you, almost everybody that heard that question would answer it yes, because it's the academic answer that they think you want to hear. But here's what I did. I said, but you and I, because of our expertise with mine in neuroscience and coaching and his in psychology, I said, because of our expertise outside of aviation, you and I'd have a leg up on answering that, but even you and I would be hard pressed to answer it in the definitive and the, that deductive nature of the question. Because I said, in order to try to make that deductive link, there's a couple of things that you got to just throw in the waste can and not consider. And as soon as you've done that, you've ejected from it. And what was amazing is the very last thing that the host of the NTSB board said, even before he turned, and this is, I think, out there because it was before he turned the recorder off, but he said, I want to share something with you, Randy. And I said, what's that? And he looked at me and he said, it is clear that you're a subject matter expert. He said, we want to thank you for coming and talking to us. And I looked around the table. I said, gentlemen, you need me to come talk to you any day of the week. You just pick up the phone and give me a call, kind of thing. And the attorney actually walked up to me after. He said, Randy, you did amazing in there, kind of thing. But it's that awareness of, when you're talking to the people listening to this, when you look at how you generally interact with your team, are you interacting in such a way that you're really getting the truth, the experience, the existence, the insights from your people? Are you really learning about them? Do they have a sense that you really want to connect with them? Do they have a sense that you really care about them and you care about what they think and what they're thinking about this situation? Or do they have an experience of, you're just looking for rote academic things? So it's a key point when you're talking about leaders of things that leaders need to be thinking about, when you think about your interaction with your team, what are the questions you're using? How should they be a little bit different to really build the synergy and the consistency and the success in your team? And so I'd leave that with the listeners just as something to kind of look at for something to consider going forward.
Awesome. Now you got me thinking. I'm a questioner, right? I'm an
Well,
interviewer. I'm a
well,
journalist. And
yeah.
I'm thinking, are my questions ever good enough? Because you got to
Well, you know
Randy
what?
Swaim putting me on the spot. No, but really, you think about it. What do you ask? Yeah, are you asking? I just, as a person, generally like to know what someone and who someone is about. But at the same
Yeah.
time, oh wow, you put a lot of things out there in perspective for me even today.
Well,
With
I
this,
I consider that
a
honoring.
compliment.
Thank you.
It
I
is.
appreciate that. And
It is.
but it's something that when you're talking about leadership, or when you're doing whatever we do, whether you're being
Yeah.
a coach or whether you're doing what you do, Jill, it's something to think about. What are the questions? Do you really want a different question? Are you just getting them to give you a rote academic answer that they think you want to hear? Or are you really asking the question in such a way that they kind of go,
Oh.
you know what, let's talk about that. Yeah, here, what I'm thinking is you do that, and man, some radical
And they
results can
open up.
happen.
Yeah, they open
Yeah.
up fully, honestly, and which is important.
And
Wow.
if you do that and they feel like they opened up and they see your positive reaction to that, all of a sudden they go, you know what? My manager cares about me.
Mm-hmm.
My manager cares about our team. Boy, let's maximize this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those kind of little ways of really building the synergy and the oneness and the success of your team. So it's just that aspect of thinking about the questions you're asking. How might you need to kind of rethink that with the answers that you would typically get? Is that really looking for what you're looking for? And if I was coaching somebody, I'd say, well, when you ask those questions, what are you really looking for? And what is it? And so yeah, it's a key aspect of it, and it's an insight that a lot of people don't have. Like with my friend or something, if I was talking to them, I mean, you obviously can't, but if I was talking to them after that situation, I'd ask them a lot of questions
Hey.
about what made you want to push it up.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What made you want to do that? And what's the risk of that? Is that the ethical thing for the situation you're in? Kind of thing. And because most people, when they think ethical things, they think in these rote sort of academic columns, as opposed to that can be very varying sometimes. And it's an interesting aspect when you're talking about leading in a challenging world. But that aspect about questions, I just leave for the listeners, the aspect of thinking about the questions you typically ask, even maybe recently with your team. Is it really getting you what you want?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it shutting them down in a second because they just think it's a test? Or is it really building synergy? Is it really building oneness? And are you really getting what you need to get a sense of your team, the people, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and all of that? So when how you ask those questions is a key part of it. And so it's just, there's a lot of aspects to it when you're talking about this kind of an environment. And if all you do is just go with rote academic aspects, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be things you miss. And what do you need to do to highlight those things that are maybe risk that you didn't think about? So I leave that. It's just something that it's a good question.
That's it.
It's
Because we
something to
have
think
just
about.
2 minutes left, and it's perfect timing. Wow, it just goes so quick. Coaching for relevance. Randy, tell us how we can reach you. And any insight or enlightenment for the new year for people listening out there who really do want to start bettering themselves. How do you want to leave off the show?
Sure, I'll do that. Just Randy Swaim, Coaching for Relevance. As you said, you can go to my website. I don't do sales pitches, so if somebody just wants to have a conversation, they don't have to worry about me. Perfect. And stuff like that. Yeah, just looking for the new year. What is it you really want to be different?
Yeah.
On that new year. because like you said correctly, so if you don't know where you're going, you'll get there, kind of thing. And it's so, what is it you really want to be different next year, and then start to put your strategy together for getting there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next time we get to meet. Best of luck. I'm looking forward to this documentary, which I cannot wait to see once it's edited. Wish you best of success on that and the autobiography. By the way, how long have you been working on that book for?
Well, I started writing it about 10 years ago, but I went for about 8.5 to 9 years where it was I just kind of put it on the back. But with a lot of this coming up on the autobiography and the documentary movie that's coming out and all this, I started looking at that, and they're already hooking me up with couple of potential publishers that might be interested in publishing it. So I said, you know what, let's do it. So I'm going to be sending the first draft out to a couple of colleagues, probably by the weekend. Right. And then we're going to kind of look at it, tweak it maybe a little bit if we need to, and awesome. Then put it in its final form. So yeah, it's been, I'm amazed going back through it. I'm amazed at what my journey has been like. So yeah, it's been amazing. So hopefully there's a few things to look forward to for next year.
Great. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here on the show, and to all of our listeners the same. Thank you for being here. Happy New Year. I guess we'll be in touch, and I will say the corny line. Talk to you next year.
You bet.
It's so
Jill,
corny,
it's always a pleasure. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Same here, Randy. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy. I hope the weather in Dallas is holding out for you guys. Is it still nice there now?
It's cool, but it's nice.
All right, good. I love Dallas weather. I love Dallas. I love Texas. Too. All right, have a great day. We're stuck in cold New York today. Woohoo!
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.